Hey guys, welcome back to chapters 30 and 31 of David Walliams' Gangster Granny. Now you may notice I'm in a different location today. Well, I went home without my favorite book. Got to bring this home. So had to come here bright and early to get this recorded. Now, this is a change of scenery, but life is about changes. Now, if you remember in the beginning, Ben thought Granny was boring. Then he thought she was a gangsta. Then he was upset that she lied. But in the end, he found out she's pretty darn cool as she is. Life's about changes. For example, I'm going from elementary to middle school. You are going from possibly third grade to fourth grade or another grade, but the adventure doesn't have to stop there. If you love these stories and you want to see more, make sure you go on and have your parents subscribe so that you can hear more stories and see some art lessons and everything else that we do here. All right, let's get started with chapters 30 and 31. Chapter 30, a packet of sugar.
Thought you could get away with stealing the crown jewels, did you?
Whined Mr. Parker.
I know all about your wicked plan. Well, it's over. Officers, take them away and lock them up and throw away the key.
The policeman pulled the captives in the direction of two waiting police cars. Hang on a second, shouted Ben. If we stole the crown jewels, where are they?
Yes, of course, the evidence. All we need to put you two gangsters behind bars forever. Search the basket of the scooter at once,
said Mr. Parker. One of the policemen went through the basket. He found a large package wrapped in soggy cling film. Ah!
Yes, that must be the jewels,
said Mr. Parker confidently.
Give it here.
Mr. Parker shot Granny and Ben a smug look. He started unwrapping the package. Quite a few minutes passed until the big package was a little package. Finally, Mr. Parker reached the end of the cling film.
Ah, yes, here we are,
he announced, as a tin of cabbage soup fell to the ground. Could I have that, please, Mr. Parker? Said Granny. It's my lunch.
Search the bungalow,
barked Mr. Parker. A few policemen tried to bash open the front door by charging it with their shoulders. Granny looked on, amused before venturing. I've got the key right here, if you'd rather use that. One of the policemen approached her and rather sheepishly took the key. Thank you, madam, he said politely. Granny and Ben shared a smile. He then opened the door, and what seemed like hundreds of policemen charged inside. They frantically searched the bungalow, but after a short while they re-emerged empty-handed. There's no crown jewels in there, I'm afraid, sir, said one of the policemen. Just a Scrabble set and quite a few more tins of cabbage soup. Mr. Parker's face went red with fury. He had called out half the police officers in the country, all for nothing. Now, Mr. Parker, said one of the policemen to him, you are very lucky we aren't arresting you for wasting police time.
Wait,
said Mr. Parker.
Just because the jewels aren't on them or in the house doesn't mean that they don't have them. I know what I heard. Search the garden. Yes, dig it up.
The policeman put up a calming hand. Mr. Parker, we can't just... Suddenly a light of triumph lit up in Mr. Parker's eyes.
Hang on. You haven't asked them where they were this evening. I know they went to steal the crown jewels, and I bet they have an alibi for tonight.
The policeman turned to Ben and Granny, frowning. Actually, that's not a bad point, he said. Would you mind telling me where you were tonight? Mr. Parker was positively beaming now. Just then another policeman waddled over to them. There was something familiar about him, and when Ben saw his mustache, he knew why. Boss, we've just had a call through for you on... P.C. Fudge began, holding up a walkie-talkie. He stopped suddenly, staring at Ben and Granny. Well, he said, if it isn't the cling film people. P.C. Pair, said Ben. Fudge, corrected Fudge. Sorry, yes, Fudge. Nice to see you again. The superior officer looked confused. Sorry? Aladdin and his Granny. They were Cling Film Appreciation Society. They went to their annual meeting in London tonight. I dropped them off, in fact. So they weren't stealing the crown jewels? Asked the boss. No, laughed P.C. Fudge. They were merging with the Bubble Wrap Society. Stealing the crown jewels, indeed. He smiled at Ben and Granny. What an idea. Mr. Parker had gone red in the face.
What? They did it! They're villains, I'm telling you!
While he was spluttering, the superior officer took the walkie-talkie from PC Fudge. Yep, right. All right. Thank you, he said. He turned to Ben and Granny. That was a special branch. I asked them to check if the crown jewels were still there. Turns out they are. I'm sorry, ma'am. And boy, we'll have those handcuffs off you in a jiffy. Mr. Parker slumped, looking utterly dejected.
No, it can't be.
If I hear one more peep out of you, Mr. Parker, said the policeman, I will throw you in the cells for the night. He turned smartly on his heel and walked over to one of the patrol cars, followed by PC Fudge, who waved at Ben and Granny as he left. Ben and Granny approached Mr. Parker, their hands still cuffed. What you heard were just stories, said Ben. Just my granny telling me stories, Mr. Parker. I think you may have let your imagination run away with it.
Matt,
blustered Mr. Parker. Me? An international jewel thief? Granny chuckled. The policemen all started chuckling, too. You'd have to be a bit daft to believe a thing like that, she said. Sorry, Ben, she whispered to her grandson. That's okay, Ben whispered back. The policemen unlocked the handcuffs and hastily retreated into their cars and vans and sped off out of Gray Close. Sorry to disturb you, ma'am, said one of the departing officers. Have a good day. The helicopters disappeared up the dawn sky. As the blades got faster, Mr. Parker's precious pork pie hat flew off his head and into a puddle. Granny approached Mr. Parker, who was standing hatless in her drive. If ever you need to borrow a packet of sugar, she said kindly.
Yes?
Don't knock on my door, or I will shove that bag of sugar up your backside, said Granny with a sweet smile. 31. Golden Light. The sun had risen, and Gray Close was bathed in golden light. There was dew on the ground, and the unearthly mist made the little row of bungalows look somehow magical. Oh, well, said Granny with a sigh, you'd better run home now, young Ben, before your parents wake up. They don't care about me, said Ben. Oh, yes, they do, said Granny tentatively, putting her arm around her grandson. They just don't know how to show it. Maybe. Ben yawned, the biggest yawn he had ever yawned in his life. Gosh, I'm so tired tonight. It was amazing. It was the most thrilling night of my life, Ben. I wouldn't have missed it for the world, said Granny with a twinkling smile. She took a deep breath. Oh, the joy of being alive. Then her eyes filled with tears. Are you all right, Granny? Said Ben softly. Granny hid her face from her grandson. I'm fine, child. I really am. Her voice wavered with emotion as she spoke. Suddenly Ben knew something was very wrong. Granny, please, you can tell me. He held her hand in his. Her skin was soft but worn, fragile. Well, said Granny hesitantly, there is one thing I lied to you about, dear. Ben had a sinking feeling. What is it? He asked, and he squeezed her hand reassuringly. Well, the doctor gave me the test results last week, and I told you I was fine. That was a lie. I'm not fine. Granny paused for a moment. The truth is, I have cancer. No, said Ben with tears in his eyes. He had heard about cancer enough to know it could be deadly serious. Just before you ran into him at the hospital, the doctor told me I had cancer. Well, it's very advanced. How long have you got left? Spluttered Ben. Did he say? He said I wouldn't make Christmas. Ben hugged his granny as tight as he could, willing his body to share its life force with hers. Tears were running down his cheeks. It was so unfair. He'd only really gotten to know Granny in the last few weeks, and now he was going to lose her. I don't want you to die. Granny looked at Ben for a moment. None of us are going to live forever, my boy, but I hope you never forget me. Your boring old Granny. You're not boring at all. You're a proper gangsta. We very nearly stole the crown jewels, remember? Granny chuckled. Yes, but not a word of that to anyone, please. You could still get in a whole heap of trouble. It will have to remain our little secret. And the Queen's? Said Ben. Oh, yes, that nice old dear she was. I'll never forget you, Granny, said Ben. You will live forever in my heart. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me, said the old lady. I love you so much, Granny. I love you too, Ben. But you'd better be running along now. I don't want to leave you. It's very sweet of you, dear. But if your mommy and daddy wake up and find you gone, they are going to be extremely worried about you. They won't. Oh, yes, they will. Now, Ben, please be a good boy. Ben reluctantly rose to his feet. He helped his granny up off the step. Then he held her close and kissed her on the cheek. He didn't mind her hairy chin. In fact, he loved it. He loved the whistle of her hearing aid. He loved that she smelled of cabbage. And most of all, he loved that she blew off without even knowing it. He loved everything about her. Goodbye, he said softly. Goodbye, Ben. And that does it for chapters 30 and 31. A little bit sad. All right, guys. Remember, we still have a few more chapters to go. Remember what happened in the story so you can discuss it, and we'll see you next time for chapters 32 and 33.